Okay, so round one, board four. In Austria, we have Jonathan Frank, who we have seen a couple times on the stream, coming to us out of Baltimore, Maryland. England, we have Christian Brown, who is a newer member of the Windy City Weasels, coming to us from Peoria. France, we have Morgante Pell, who's played several games with us, but we've not seen in a few sessions now. So good to see Morgante back. In Germany, Jonathan Dingess from Bridgeport, West Virginia. This looks like Jonathan's first game with us, and Jonathan may be our first player from West Virginia. So welcome, Jonathan. In Italy, we have Chris Alumbaugh from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I discovered recently that we used to live close to each other, so that was fun. I lived a couple of years in Baton Rouge. Russia, Tim Richardson out of the D.C. area, Virginia, D.C. Turkey, we've got Bill Hackenbracht, well known to the hobby, organized, I believe, Liberty Cup, and coming to us out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Siobhan, anybody stand out? Any matchups that you like? Talk to us about these players.
I would love to talk to you about these players, but I am actually going to leave you guys and give Marcus back to you.
All right. Well, we will do that. Marcus, welcome. So, Marcus, I'll give you a moment to look over this. And Adam, why don't you take a look here? Who do you like?
This is awesome. This is a board of several players who haven't played with this group before. So it's really great to have them here, Jonathan and Chris. Welcome, and really excited to see how you can do. I know Tim Richardson very, very well. He's a longtime pit kisser, really solid player. And Bill, of course, has been playing all the time, organizes the Liberty Cup, well-known player. Really, two very strong players sitting in Russia and Turkey. It will be interesting, obviously, to see how they come out of the gate. There's other names here that I'm familiar with, but I don't really know the players personally. So, yeah.
All right, Marcus, if you played with any of these players, any intel on anyone?
Yeah, I played with Bill in Weaselmoot, and I think he got incredibly annoyed at me because I was Germany and just hammered this France for the entire game. But extremely strong player, didn't let me take anything for most of the game. So yeah, and I don't think I know anyone else on this list, so I'm interested to see what their play styles are and get to know how they play a little.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really curious with the Tim-Bill relationship in Russia-Turkey. I think it'll be interesting to watch how Chris in Italy responds to two players that are well-known in the hobby, and we've got someone who's new to this group. And then Jonathan's played a few games, so the East is what I'm really looking forward to see what that alliance structure breaks down to be. So, all right, well, we will go ahead and bring up the game and get right into it. Marcus, why don't you go ahead and lead us off in 1901?
Sure.
If I reveal the moves. Here we go.
Okay, so, I've skipped around here, but again, we see that Vienna to Budapest move. This time it works out. Galicia left demilitarized, and Italy moving from Venice to Tuscany, an even more pro-Austrian move than just holding there, obviously. Interesting moves from the French, getting into the English Channel, positioning to take Spain, also getting into Burgundy. Very strong, probably not what England was hoping for. And we see an anti-English Russia opening, that strong move against the north. England's going to have to decide whether they cover London or whether they force Norway, because they move to Edinburgh instead of Yorkshire. This is always the risk when you do that. That's about all I see, apart from actually Sevastopol moves to Romania, pro-Austrian move, but it lets Turkey into the Black Sea.
Marcus, what did we miss?
So, yeah.
Sorry, Adam.
No, I think we got the high points. I think the French-German opening could certainly be a sea lion type of agreement. Sometimes for sea lions you'll see Kiel go to Holland, but they're certainly set up to dislodge the North Sea if that's what they're thinking. I give credit for Tim. Didn't go to Galicia, didn't go to Black Sea, and I think he'll get away with it. So kudos there. Bill did take the Black Sea, but didn't go to Armenia, so it's a manageable position. Gets the army up in Moscow. This could get dire very quickly for England.
Yeah, I normally don't like allowing Turkey into the Black Sea when I'm Russia, but if there is ever a situation where I would allow it, it's when there's a player that I trust and have played frequently with. I know Tim and Bill have been in the face-to-face community for a very long time. I don't know if this is actually a juggernaut, but I could see this becoming a juggernaut where the two of them just say, you know what, we're not fighting over this. We're just going to figure out in 1901 who gets the Black Sea. I'm going to go play in the north, and we're going to slow play in the east and watch what happens. So
yeah, then you have that problem in Romania. Sorry, you have that problem with the fleet in Romania. It's really hard to push a juggernaut through when you've got that center taken up by a fleet. It will be interesting to see how they try to solve it if that is their intention. I wouldn't be surprised to see Turkey trying to attack Russia here, assuming that the Galicia DMZ is like too pro-Austrian for the Russians to be working with them.
Yeah, it'll be something to keep an eye on. The other thing of note for me was Moscow moving north. So I think poor Christian is just in a world of hurt with this. So, all right, moving on. I believe, Marcus, you are leading us off.
Yep, all right. The interesting moves from the Turk, attempting to tap Romania, but not actually going for it, entering a support hold. I wonder whether that was a misorder or whether it was the Turk maybe anticipating a move of Serbia to Bulgaria. I mean, they were covering that anyway, so I assume it was a misorder and they intended to support themselves in.
A misorder.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, we see the Italian moving their fleet to Tunis instead of convoying the army across, means they're out of position for attacking the Turk as quickly. And in a strong alliance with the Austrian, like you would expect that convoy to happen. Over the other side of the board, we see the support of Bothnia into Sweden. We see England securing Norway for themselves, but losing London at the same time. Looks like England is going to be in a really painful position here because all of their neighbors are against them.
I guess the Italian orders are a little unusual. Not the move to Tunis. I mean, taking Tunis with a fleet is certainly not that unusual. But moving Apulia to Naples. Therefore, basically forcing you to build Fleet Rome instead of Fleet Naples, which is a fine build, but certainly much less flexible. It certainly he's certainly sending a clear message to Turkey, but also a clear message to France about what's coming next with that fleet in Tunis and a fleet, what I can only assume will be a Fleet Rome build. And onward from there. But, maybe you do want to send this message to Turkey, and maybe you've talked to Turkey and said, hey, I will show you that I can't build fleet in Naples. You put an army down instead of building a fleet in Smyrna. That could be the beginnings of an IT. So that's what I'm watching for in the winter.
That'll be interesting. Yes, I saw that Aber Fleet Venice. That would be hilarious. All right, so let's find out if that does actually happen. Nope, we have Fleet Rome. As predicted, Morgante in France builds Fleet Brest and Army Paris. Those are fairly flexible. I could see that fleet in Brest going a couple directions. Looks like we've got two armies from Tim, which he has to build, obviously, so Warsaw and Moscow. Bill builds Fleet Smyrna. And we've got the two builds in Austria. Jonathan builds Trieste and Vienna. And Germany builds the Fleet Kiel and Army Berlin. Marcus, anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit curious about what the Turkish intention was with attacking Romania last phase. Was it just an attempt to blow up that southern fleet, given that Russia got 2 builds here, it could have been an agreement that, they get Turkey gets given the build in Romania, and therefore they have a better situation where Turkey isn't in the Black Sea and Russia doesn't have that southern fleet. But it seems like they've made up if they were against each other. And I think Russia is in a really strong position with the double build and like 6 centers to start out. That's really nice.
Yeah, I'm loving the Austrian position here for sure. Adam, anything stand out to you for these builds?
Seeing what Italy just did, if I'm England, I might be thinking, you know what? I'm going to let Russia take Norway. I'm going to convoy back and try to force London in the fall because France pretty much has to go into the mid-Atlantic and isn't going to be able to back up London, and then see what I can do from there. So, basically this has helped Russia a lot.
All right. Well, I believe, Adam, you'll lead us off for this round.
Yeah, so, right, clearly I didn't make the right call there. And actually, Norwegian supports North, Norway convoying back would have been an interesting move. But Italy instead doesn't even go after France. They really just kind of rotate around. I mean, what a wasted set of orders. They could have been a lot more productive. You could have been in Venice before and been, I don't know, moving somewhere. And I guess you got Austria going into Tyrolia. So I just don't know where Italy goes from here. You're going to have to attack somebody, and there's been no indication of what that's going to be. But we'll see. Austria is going towards Germany, which is again a strange choice. This looks like, in some ways, sort of like a rat, except a rat where Turkey's attacking Russia. So I'm not sure what that means. But this could be a rat where this was just agreed to for Turkey to take the fleet in Romania out. And actually, seeing that Sev held and didn't support Romania makes me believe that that's almost assuredly the case. So I think this is a rat. It's a strange way to play it. Serbia probably could have gone to Trieste if that's what they were doing. It's going to probably have to do that now to cover against the Italians. So, but we'll see.
Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was thinking with the South. Sevastopol hold, Budapest hold, neither of them support hold. Romania seems to indicate this is a Russia-Austria-Turkey alliance. The question I would want to ask here is, like, this really doesn't seem like a good moveset to Russia unless you really trust that Turkish player, because Sevastopol has nothing to support hold it now. And Turkey has Romania, they have Black Sea, they've got all their armies out, they're in a beautiful position, they can just keep pushing. What if they got to gain from bid sticking with this RAT? I think the Sevastopol not support holding Romania may have been a huge blunder on the Russian part.
Yeah, if I'm Russia, I don't mind this if Black is moving to Romania, but I do not like Bulgaria moving, and I'd be furious, but what am I going to do? I have no way of stopping Turkey if they decide to move against me. So I'd be real curious to watch what happens there.
I mean, I don't see this being a great set of moves for Austria either, to be perfectly honest. I mean, Austria is just like abandoning their position in the middle of the war. They're putting themselves, in the front lines and leaving their backside really poorly protected. So to me, this works great for Turkey, and I'm not sure it works great for Russia or Austria.
Yeah. And Germany making it into North Sea, that's always a beautiful thing when you're Germany. That's a good sign of good German position in most cases. So moving on, Adam, let's
I guess what I would point out is, if you go back for 1 second, is the English move of North Sea to London was guaranteed to be a futile move, and so I'm really actually surprised. Go to the English Channel or go to Yorkshire or something like that if you have nothing else to do, or go to Helgoland or something. That was a guarantee to not do anything.
Oh boy, Norway back. Surely,
what I wanted. I wanted Norwegian supports North and Norway convoys back, but Yeah.
I mean, he could have been thinking London was going to move to north, London being the mover, but
it still doesn't achieve anything, right? I mean, the only way it achieves something is if he's thinking, I'm going to go Brest to Mao and London to English Channel, but not super likely.
yeah, not a great result for the English player for sure. So, Adam.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Austria obviously decides that, okay, maybe this wasn't the greatest idea for me to stick three ways, and makes the move on to Romania while Turkey attacks the Russian. Austria also manages to take Munich while Russia fails to take Berlin. So actually a pretty decent turn for the Austrians. They've clearly got Italy on side against the Turks. Russia is, stuck defending themselves now that they've got a Turkish army in Sev. So pretty good set of moves for the Austrian, given that the Italians are on side. Maybe the attack on Munich could have been from Tyrolia to let the Italians follow up there and have a little bit more backing there, but not a bad set. The French convoy into England, further adding to the English woes here. It is interesting, though, that the North Sea supported Norway in order to make sure the Russians didn't take it. That's sort of an interesting development.
Marcus.
Yep. I mean, two things I wanted to mention here that talk about Romania. It's interesting that Bulgaria didn't go up to Romania. It indicates that Turkey and Austria agreed to this, which, I mean, given that Italy's in the Eastern Mediterranean, it looks bad for the Turk all around. It looks like Austria could just very easily turn this against the Turk. And the other thing, yeah, Germany turning around completely in the north, not going back to Denmark, going back to Ruhr, just letting France do their thing. I think France is going to get an amazing deal out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely like the French position here, and the Austrian. Jonathan, I was curious to see who would be able to take Chris and get Chris on side, because early on it didn't look like there was a strong choice from Chris. And right now it looks like Jonathan may have gotten Chris on side. If he is able to maintain that relationship, I think that's going to be bad for Bill, and definitely give Austria a chance to move against Turkey if they want to. So. All right, moving on to our builds. We've got a double fleet build from Morgante in France. We've got a disband of the Northern Fleet by Tim in Russia. Always sad to see as someone who loves Russia. But in this case, I don't know if there was much of a choice. Then in Turkey builds fleet in Smyrna. Jonathan continues to roll with the double army build. And that looks like that's it. Anything stand out to you, Adam or Marcus?
I understand the double fleet build for France. I might have been thinking a fleet and an army, especially since you've only got two armies on the mainland and, one in England that's not going to be very helpful. I mean, I guess my concern is if Austria, Italy, somebody goes to Piedmont, maybe you got to put something into Belgium to cover against the Germans. It's not, kind of optimal being stuck out in Portugal and then, just one other army there. So, I might have been thinking Army Marseille or Army Paris.
Yep, absolutely agree. I think the Fleet Smyrna build from Bill is quite interesting. It means I suppose he is kind of looking to defend Bulgaria maybe with Black Sea and Aegean, but he's very, very reliant on the Austrian not stabbing here. Although I guess he didn't really have much of a choice.
All right. Well, Marcus, why don't you lead us off in 03?
Yeah, we see the Austrian stab on the Turk. Well, I assume it was a stab and that the Turk intended to move to the intended to work with the Austrian, but actually we also see the Turk moving on the Austrian, getting out of Sevastopol and into Romania, buddying back up to the Russian again. Very good choice on his part. Elsewhere, loses Smyrna, loses that guess on whether Italy would be convoying into Syria or attacking Smyrna, and that could be very painful. He does have the units to deal with it. Got Fleet Smyrna and Army Constantinople, but Army Constantinople and Fleet Aegean can both be tapped, so it's difficult. The French move to the Mid-Atlantic Ocean, very interesting. It's a very flexible position, could be moved against Italy very, very quickly, and I guess that was what this double fleet build was perfect for. It's a very greedy build, hoping to get a huge advantage immediately if nothing is happening in the middle of the board. And England walks straight into Sevastopol. Russia backing off. Germany's backing off of England as well. Looks like the Eastern powers interfering in the West has kind of, it's not united the West because France is still taking supply centers, but certainly benefiting France a lot.
And continue to hurt Russia at the cost of Russia. So,
Yep.
Marcus, what did we miss?
That's Adam, but
Adam. We're just switching names today.
I don't want to take anything again away from France because I think the position is great. To me, France is playing flexibility and losing some momentum by trying to be more flexible here. Sending a fleet to the Irish Sea at this stage isn't necessary for securing Liverpool. I think a strong case could be made for forcing the North Sea and just telling Germany you're doing that, and hey, you can retreat to Skag and make a play on Sweden or something like that if you end up getting kicked out, and if you don't, then that's okay. And then Brest up to the Channel. Marseille to Spain, what that's really doing is it's limiting your options for getting that army from Portugal back to a place where it's useful. Now you've got to either convoy it over the mid-Atlantic to like Gascony or Brest or something, which is not great, or you've got to wait another turn before it starts marching back. And you really want that army to be into play. You're taking a risk by leaving Belgium open. You're probably going to have to cover it in the fall, I think. I would have liked to see a little bit more steady play here. And I get the point of leaving yourself the option of swinging south, but I don't think that's to your advantage right now. There's so many dots in the north, and it's such a mess between England, Germany, and Russia up there. It may not get you a solo at this stage, but you can get a huge result taking a lot of dots up there and figure out the right time to pivot a few units south later on.
Well, we could take the John Jameson strategy and convoy the army into North Africa. So
we may see that. I mean, it's certainly possible.
I'd actually call that reasonable at this point, because it leaves Mid-Atlantic Ocean able to go north if necessary.
I don't like it. I think having an army down there is just really problematic, and it's really hard to manage. But we'll see.
All right, let's check out what happens in the fall.
Okay.
Well, so we don't see that convoy over to North Africa. We do see Portugal starting to move out, and we see big swing of France against Italy. France still really has no enemies. Like, Germany is on side, England's on side. They're all moving away from France. I love this French position. We get the Russian going back into Sevastopol. Makes sense. Turkey does manage to take Smyrna back, retreating Aegean into Constantinople. Not ideal having Italian fleets in Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean, obviously, but at least they've managed to secure their homeland. Very reliant on the Russian propping them up still, though, and the move out of Galicia doesn't speak well for that. Only other interesting thing I think that I can see, obviously Munich backing out, but I think he knew that was lost. Venice trying to move to Trieste. That I doubt that was agreed. Maybe if they thought that Austria was getting too strong in comparison to them and negotiated that, but interesting to see whether that raises tensions between them.
Yeah, so it looks like Apulia supported Venice to hold and then moved Venice. So interesting.
I would argue that could be agreed because the only way that works under this set of moves is if Austria holds Romania, in which case they're getting the build from Bulgaria, in which case you're basically just transferring the build to from Austria to Italy. And since Austria can't really use the build anyway, I guess they could if they hold in Trieste instead of moving to Budapest. But I wouldn't be so sure that it wasn't arranged.
That's fair.
Moving on to our builds for winter of 1903, we have another Southern Fleet from Morgante in France, builds Fleet Marseille, Army Berlin for Jonathan in Russia. We've got Bill disbanding the fleet in Syria. That is definitely going to hurt. And then we've got Jonathan disbanding the army in Vienna. Interesting situation on the board right now. I think there's some shifts. I mean, obviously Morgante is in the catbird seat, but for everybody else, it'll be curious to see what they do with these. Adam, anything stand out to you for these builds?
If I'm Germany, I'm really strongly thinking about dropping into the English Channel and Belgium and shifting the armies that way, because that's looking really tasty right now. And this is exactly my point about having no armies in France.
Yeah.
That's looking real tasty.
Yep, that would be my thoughts as well. I think Fleet Marseille is a big mistake. You could pivot Mid-Atlantic Ocean down south. You've got no reason to build a new fleet there.
If you're making a play against Italy, you need the army to go to Piedmont, right?
Yeah, and specifically, like, the reason you have this amazing position in the north is that everyone in the north is kind of weak and willing to work with you. Germany is now getting a strong position, and you've got no ability to counter that. You've got no armies.
It's very vulnerable. Adam, anything else jump out to you? Or Marcus? I did it again.
I mean, Fleet Syria disband makes sense. Turkey relying on the Italian turning around to counter this French push. And, I mean, Army Vienna off the board makes sense as well.
I think it's super interesting that, you have Tim and Bill, two very strong players who know each other and got into a scuffle early, and where has it gotten them? They're at about 4 centers apiece in 1904. So clearly that hasn't worked out so well, or the way that either of them had hoped.
Yeah, sometimes that's what happens. You get two experienced players that go head to head, and they kind of cancel each other out, and it's good for the rest of the board. I feel like Jonathan had an opportunity to kind of take advantage of that, and he's in the back seat, but I still think he's got some good position here if he makes some good choices. So be curious to see what happens there. All right. I believe, Adam, is this one yours?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you've got mind control the way France apparently does, who needs armies, right? So, hey, if Morgante's got a good diplomatic read of what Germany is aiming for, then more power to him, and great job, I guess is what I would say. Tactically, there's definitely questions about the army position, but strategically and negotiation wise, everything is falling into pieces the way he wants them to. So, darn well done. I love the move to Tyrrhenian Sea. This is all great, great for France. And man, you got Austria supporting themselves into Venice while Italy's trying to defend from this stuff. I mean, how could it go more perfect for you? Because now Italy's going to probably say, well, you know what? Maybe I'm more mad at Austria than I am at France, and maybe I'm going to just let France kind of plow in here. Opportunities for Turkey will probably present themselves now, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I actually think Venice might be in a range swap with the Italian as Italy gets to Greece. Okay, a very interesting and weird swap. You don't usually want to give up Venice, and there doesn't seem to be a huge reason for doing so. But it might be. And yeah, absolutely. The comments about Marseille being a bad build apply only if Germany is going to use that strong position against you. And evidently, France had the diplomatic capacity and the diplomatic ability to keep this situation being fantastic for them and take advantage of it. Looks like the board might start to stall out here, though, especially if Turkey sticks with the AIR. That's the one question mark, whether Turkey decides to stab them or not, given that Turkey seems to have been expected to move to Galicia and didn't.
Yeah, Eber just pointed out the East definitely looking like they united. I completely agree with that. If they are able to stick together, Marcus, you're absolutely right. This is a potential to lock up.
I completely expect Turkey to, at the appropriate point, take 2 or 3 dots off of Austria, because there's no reason for them not to do that from this upcoming position.
Yeah. Yep. This kind of situation is always beautiful for a Turk looking to board top.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'd say good job to Chris and the Eastern allies for the Italian fleets into Ionian. I believe at Weaselmoot in round 1, we had Ali Adib, who had a really monster France, who was able to slip into the Ionian and then into the Adriatic. Once that happens, it's really difficult for the East to defend that. And from this position, they do have the right unit mix to slow down the French player. So I'm curious to see if France gets frustrated, realizes, hey, I can't move forward, and moves north. So I don't know if they can with all the fleets. All right, continuing on, 1904 fall.
I think, Marcus, you're up.
Is it me? I think it was you.
Sure.
It's me? Okay. Regardless of whether that Venice-Greece was arranged or not, if I'm understanding this, the Tyrolia is supporting Piedmont. Okay, so that was cut by the Germans, and the French take Piedmont as a result of that. Okay, that certainly makes sense. There was some guesses here. Well, I don't know if this is really a guess. The French went to Tuscany and were bounced by the Austrians. They really didn't have a play on Rome or Naples. This is really about the East trying to set up some kind of a line here. Finally, the Turks do go to Galicia, but maybe this is going to be harder for them now that the Germany's in Bohemia, Silesia play. Also really interesting that England is continuing to play ball, sitting at 3 centers. Seemed pretty obvious that Germany was going to take Edinburgh. Maybe England has a little bit more leverage here to try to, get a build by telling the West that, hey, I'm going to flip sides if you don't give me a build here. But apparently they're pretty well locked up together.
Well, and we've seen this from Christian Brown before. I think at Moot, he was playing Germany and ended up with all of his dots down in Austria and Romania. So he does seem to be comfortable playing away from his home centers, which can be a lot of fun. So fun to watch that.
Yeah.
Marcus, anything?
Yeah, England has a nice position on the stalemate line here. Might not be permanent. I love the French move into North Sea. Just France being in that position, fantastic. Germany doesn't have anything they can really do. I guess they have a build here, but that army in London is ready to convoy across to Holland. The army in Burgundy, despite France not having many armies, is still ready to stab if necessary, and North is just a fantastic unit to have if you ever want to stab anyone in the West. Aside from that, I would need to revise my stalemate lines as to whether the East can get this in time, but I think they're in a pretty strong spot. Maybe not to hold Warsaw and Moscow ultimately, but at least to hold the line behind that.
I think that this can probably be held, because I think that if Turkey gets up into Ukraine, well, and they lose Galicia, but even losing Galicia, yeah, not entirely clear right now.
Yeah, the danger for the entire board is that if Germany moves too much more forward, then Morgante can just it's a vacuum sucking the French units across the board into the middle. So it'll be curious to see.
I would love to see Piedmont support Munich to Tyrolia, Burgundy into Munich. That would be beautiful, combined with a convoy into Holland. I doubt it will happen, but we'll see.
All right, well, let's get through our builds, and then we'll take a break. So we've got a army in Marseille, which a much-needed French army, army in Berlin, and that looks like it's it. So anything jump out about these builds?
I mean, beautiful opportunity for the French to stab if they can pull that German army from Munich into Tyrolia and move in Burgundy behind it and convoy across to Holland. I'm really rooting for that to happen. I think that would be amazing.
I would imagine, though, that you're going to see Venice supporting Tyrolia here, aren't you? Which would
that will probably ruin it. I guess we'll see.
You've got a decent shot, though, if you've got another support from Bohemia, so it may go.
Well, let's play Who Do You Like? Marcus, we'll start with you. I think we would all agree that France's position is the position to beat. So rather than spend time on that, is there anyone that has even an outside shot at topping this board besides France?
Turkey. I mean, it doesn't look like a strong position, but you're ready to take Sevastopol, you're ready to take Bulgaria, you can take Greece from there. As long as, if the Western powers keep this pressure, then I think Turkey is guaranteed a good result. If France stabs, depends how fast the others can turn around. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with Marcus. I mean, I think a Turkish board top is probably unlikely, but I think a strong second place is probably fairly likely under most situations here. You know, the only potential caveat there is if France does really sort of accelerate or make a stab and you know, it becomes a major solo threat on the board. It may be harder for Turkey to be taking dots in the back without really risking somebody tossing an 18th dot to France.
And I think it's worth pointing out we're playing with Carnage scoring today. So Carnage, a strong second if you got enough dots to win a tie with any of your other second place people, combined with a really good score, obviously a solo, but another good board top in the next round could give you a shot at competing for definitely the top 7, possibly even the win, depending on how it goes. We don't have boards. Yeah, a strong second might be something worth playing for.
Yeah, I do want to very quickly say, of all the boards so far, I think this French position is the most likely to lead to a solo. Having Tunis across the line like this, beautiful. Having Germany and England pointed the other way and holding the stalemate position, it's very possible that France pushes in and manages to take everything without anyone being able to take back Tunis. Sure.
All right. So, Adam, why don't you start on tactics for 1905, and then Marcus, you can talk about the strategic situation. All right. So, tactics for 1905.
Okay. So, I think the key in the middle of the board is that they choose to try to put France into Tyrolia, which was not going to be successful in this situation because of the support from Venice was not cuttable. They made an interesting decision here to put Fleet Tyrrhenian Sea into Tuscany rather than convoying Marseille over. I think perhaps they were expecting to get into Tyrolia in this situation, but you know, I think advancing the position with the army into Tuscany would have been.
Oh, looks like you may have lost Adam there for a minute. Marcus, you want to keep going?
All right. Yeah, I mean, here we kind of just seeing the Western Triple stick together. It may well be just France waiting for a more open position. I'd be really disappointed if it's just Western Triple to the end, because I think France has such a good position to counter that. But on the other side of the board, we're seeing everyone unite, everyone move forward to prevent this. And yeah, I mean, even Bill, who was in a potential position to stab, is now moving those units forward and might not be able. Well, he's still able to stab, but seems to want to prevent this Western triple moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely looks like a little bit of East versus West here, and we'll be curious to see if anybody comes out and makes a move.
I'm really curious from the negotiation standpoint, is this being driven, entirely by Morgante? And if so, I mean, it's pretty nice what he's doing here, and we'll just have to see when the axe falls.
Yeah, no, I like the Austrian moves here too. I think it's worth pointing out. I think it was some good play, moving units in the right places.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I can only have to believe that Morgante is driving what's happening here, just because if he felt like he wasn't, I think he probably would have stabbed right about, by this time.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to 1905.
Yep.
It's not what I was expecting.
No. So we see a single dot move where France takes Holland, and this even could have been agreed, knowing that Germany was guaranteed Warsaw, and it was just sort of like, okay, I keep working with you, but you got to keep feeding the beast. That's not beyond the realm of possibility. Certainly, the move to Ruhr doesn't make it look that way, but I mean, who knows? Elsewhere, they do finally put the army into Tuscany, wisely deciding to go that way instead of trying for Tyrolia again, which was going to be futile. It's also pretty exciting that Germany is now taking Galicia. So this is really well pushed through the line. The question is it maintained with the perhaps stabbed by France, perhaps somewhat agreed by France, somewhat agreed moves? I don't know.
Marcus, what do you make of this?
Yeah, if France can convince Germany that this was agreed, I think that's an amazing move by them, because the move to Ruhr in combination with the move to Holland is just so evident of a stab. And I think what makes it brilliant is the Turkish stab at the same time. Turkey goes +3, they take out I mean, they go for the best SC position they could. Otherwise, I kind of recommend it usually, and maybe it's a good thing here, but given that France is about to stab and kind of has, it could well lead to a French solo, especially given that now all of the German units have just moved much further away from their homeland.
Yeah, I love to see the play. I think it's going to make it a much more exciting rest of this game. So let's keep pressing forward into our builds. Some interesting questions here on these builds. I think the army in Paris absolutely makes sense, particularly if Morgante is trying to continue pushing into Germany. Bill, I think, had some interesting choices. 3 builds, got to be loving that. Builds 2 armies, fleet in Smyrna. Portem's down to the lone army in Moscow. Might be able to hold on to that for this game. It'll be interesting to see. And then Jonathan has to disband the fleet, which is only helping Morgante, and then the army in Vienna. Marcus, we'll start with you. Anything stand out on these builds?
I mean, it's not from the builds themselves, but just, I mean, Ionian coming off kind of maybe indicates that Austria said, okay, screw you, Turkey. How dare you do this? I'm just going to make sure you get nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And France could well get a very quick solo here.
Adam?
I think Austria had no choice but to disband Ionian there. I mean, what is he going to pull out? Budapest or Trieste or something? I mean, he could have pulled Tyrolia, but I think it makes perfect sense as punishment to the Turks. This is a very high probability French solo position right here. I think if France had one more fleet in the north, I think it would be almost a sure thing.
It's gonna be fun. So moving on, tactics for 06. Marcus, why don't you take these?
Yeah, sure. So we do see some effort to prevent this French solo. We see England moving back to try and counter it. We see England supporting the German unit into North Sea, but France is still advancing. They've taken Denmark here. They have position to potentially take Kiel. That will be a bit more guessy. But I think we see the Austrians supporting France into Rome, which goes to indicate that Austria has gone, Turkey, how dare you do this? And Germany doing whatever they can to try and stop that, I think. Say, okay, if I murder Austria quickly, maybe it will stop him from throwing the solo. Tries to support the Turk into Budapest. Also gets Austrian support back into Munich, which is an interesting one. But it looks like better than the rest of the board, and Austria potentially throwing.
And Adam, what's your take?
I don't see a lot of rationale for Germany to be helping Turkey at this point. Galicia should be going back to Bohemia to back up Munich. You're trying to stop a solo here. You're trying to stop somebody from taking your home centers. What do you want to get involved in that for? I think that there's definitely a pullback that we're not seeing that I would like to see. I think actually what's really interesting to me is seeing the English moves, clearly showing that England is not entirely in France's pocket and is actually does want to have a hand in this game and does want to have some influence in this game. And I think that's pretty cool that he's jumping in and demonstrating that here.
Yeah, either that or just sees an opportunity to get one of his home centers back.
Well, I mean, honestly, if he goes from Norwegian and takes Edinburgh, that would be absolutely disastrous, actually, to the effort to stopping France. So that will be really interesting if that's the way he's going.
Yeah. And this is the kind of game where it's just the emotions have to be making a big part of the decisions that are going on here. And it'd be a lot of fun to be a spectator listening in on these negotiations. So much going on here. Is
a language we can't broadcast, right?
Exactly. And I think the move of Jonathan supporting Bill into the Austrian centers, is that a response to obvious Austrian dot throwing? Are they trying to keep that from happening, or is there something else going on? I don't know what to make of that one, but this is fun. All right, moving on, Marcus.
Okay, France manages to take Sweden, which is an interesting one. Doesn't manage to get into Naples. The Italian does manage to cut Rome and prevent that. What else is going on? Turkey tries to put Germany into Vienna. There's still a lot of fighting going on that front, and Germany gets put into Moscow to try and kill the Russian unit that's preventing the Turk from advancing. So I think there's some effort from England, Germany here to say, okay, we need to push this Turk forward into being in the power position in the east so that they can take control and fight back against France. But I don't know that it's going to be in time.
Adam?
I would have liked Denmark going to Baltic. I mean, obviously, we see that would have put him in Kiel. I mean, Baltic had a lot of options here in terms of what it might have done. I guess the risk of Denmark to Baltic is if there's no way Baltic can end up getting into Kiel, so I don't think that's really a risk. So that would have probably guaranteed Kiel. If they kick you out of Denmark, you're probably going to be able to retreat to Sweden anyway. So, Austria is still doing what you would expect Austria to be doing here, and it's hard to think that he should be doing anything else. I mean, with Turkey making that stab there, at this point, it's like, well. If that's going to end up with a French solo because you did that, then too bad for you. You ruined my game, I'm going to ruin yours. And this is just the nature of these kinds of things. I'm sure there's no love lost between them right now.
I think the interesting thing there is actually, I mean, in Carnage, there's a very good reason for Austria to just say, okay, yeah, you stabbed me, but I still want some points out of this game. I shouldn't let a solo happen. If you're going to make a stab like this, you have to be able to do damage control. And Turkey seems to have completely failed on that front in convincing the Austrians to not throw the game.
Well, they are picking up the build in Budapest, so Austria will go down, and I don't know that Austria is going to be able to hold the position once he drops another unit. So I guess that's the counter argument.
No, I mean, I'm sure that they can't, and I think that's the entire rationale for Austria just saying, I'm going to spend all my effort helping France at this stage and just, stymieing you.
Yeah. Well, they did a decent job keeping France from progressing through in the Med, so it'll be curious to see if any more growth happens. I think there's no way to stop Naples at least, but I don't know if they go any further than that. All right, so on to builds. Austria disbands in Tyrolia. Italy disbands in Apulia. Bill builds an army in Caen, and we've got Morgante building a fleet in Brest, army in Paris. Christian disbands in St. Pete, and then Jonathan builds in Kiel. So anything stand out to either of you here?
These all look like exactly what I would expect to see.
Yep. All right. So I think, Adam, it's your turn on tactics. Why don't you lead us off?
Sure. Okay, so England is taking 2 of his home centers back. So kudos to Christian on that. And it looks like he'll be able to hold both of them if he chooses to do so. So that's kind of exciting. Interesting that France holds an NAO. I don't see a lot of rationale for that. I don't know why you wouldn't at least go to the Norwegians, send that into the Norwegian. So that's a little strange to me. I mean, actually, these are fairly passive moves by France in general this turn. So I just wonder if this is sort of going to a conclusion here rather than making an effort. I don't agree with that decision if that's the decision that's been made, but that may be the case. In the East, similarly, Austria is really just doing some supporting moves, and Turkey is positioning around to try to take some more Austrian dots. Recognizes that maybe I don't really need Italy. That's debatable, but that seems to be part of the decision process here. So.
Yeah, it looks to me like they're starting to head for a draw. Marcus, would you agree with that?
I think this could be a strategy from France where they appear to be doing nothing and they say, okay, I'm not the one holding out on the draw, right? And then put in the draw vote and go for the solo anyway. But I really feel like it would be more effective just to push for the solo. They do have a good enough position. Yes, they're losing London. That's a problem. But I mean, they are getting into position to try and take it back, putting the unit in Belgium to convoy over. The one thing I'm most surprised about, I think, is Turkey taking Greece. That seems like a bad idea, considering, you kind of needed this line. Well, I guess France had Naples guaranteed anyway, so maybe they just thought, okay, we'll take what we can and try and push France back later. But now Italy's guaranteed out, and France can just kill them this year.
Yeah, if nothing else, it makes me less likely to accept a draw if I'm France because of that.
Yeah.
All right, continuing on to fall of 1907, Adam.
Right. So Italy supports France into the Ionian Sea. Maybe not a unsurprising result of Turkey stabbing for Greece. I mean, I think the issue here for stopping the solo and why there's a lot of incentive for Morgante to play is that Bill has pretty much burned his bridges with almost everybody on this board, with the exception of maybe Germany, maybe. But I sort of wonder if, Sev to Moscow is sort of a cheap shot, right? And there's no reason to be ordering that if you're trying to work with the guy to stop to stop the solo. A lot of red arrows in the north. I don't know that there's a lot to say there.
Marcus?
Yeah, I think possibly the most interesting move from the strategic front is Piedemont's support Munich to Tyrolia. It makes me think there was a draw proposal there. France did say, look, I'm not doing anything. I'm not the one holding out. They probably were the one holding out. And they said, okay, Germany, come on, work with me. We need to stop this greedy Turk from taking everything. And the way Bill is playing is kind of playing into that. But Germany not falling for that, and obviously manages to hold Munich and Kiel. I think France goes down a centre here, but I still think they have an amazing solo shot if they just want to.
Yeah, but at this point, France is going to be at 11 and Turkey is going to be at 10. I mean, I agree that France has the better position, but could Turkey top this board at this stage?
Oh, well, the thing is, France has now. Austria was attempting to throw to them. I don't know if they still are, but they're certainly not happy with the Turk. Italy is now attempting to throw to Turkey, and that fleet could be very important. And yeah, I just think Turkey doesn't have that much potential to grow much more, whereas France has an amazing position to try and solo from.
I would imagine the minute that Turkey moves up to Ukraine, Germany's going to just say, "Screw it, I'm throwing this," right? So.
Yeah, and I think Germany goes down one here, correct? I don't see them picking anything up, and they lose Edinburgh.
Yeah, and I don't know why England takes that, because, that seems very greedy because they don't get the builds. I guess they want to be able to have somewhere to build from later, but it's going to hurt them if France manages to get the solo out of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, for our builds, we see Germany disbands the army in Galicia, which is going to make the Turk position interesting for sure. Turkey builds an army in Caen, a fleet in Smyrna. Italy disbands in Adriatic. France disbands in Tuscany. Yeah, that all makes sense to me. Anything stand out to either of you?
Not particularly. I think the Austrian disband shows that Austria is intending to give Venice to France now, and France can still take Naples. So it's fantastic position for France.
Yeah, I think Bill has definitely irritated his eastern neighbors quite a bit, and they're less irritated with Morgante. That's how you solo. So, curious.
Yeah, but Morgante can't take Naples really because he actually needs that fleet. Mm-hmm. So having that fleet on site is super helpful right now, and unless he's really in the position to get to 18, I don't see him taking that for quite some time.
That's fair.
Agreed. All right. So spring of 2008, Marcus, why don't you talk us through the tactics here?
Okay. Austria attempts to take Venice and appears to have made up with Turkey, at least in that respect. Does attempt to push the German unit against Turkey too, though, which actually the German left their front line really open to France here, and France didn't take advantage of it at all. France is moving into the North Sea. That's going to lead to a better position against England. But they are leaving their backline open for England into English Channel and then potentially into Brest if France can't pick up some builds here. And Turkey just advancing. I really don't like the Turkish move into Ukraine. I think Adam was completely correct. That's exactly what you do if you want to get Germany to throw the game.
I mean, I guess you can make an argument that you got to be there to be able to force Galicia, especially after what just happened. But nonetheless, I would not be happy about that if I'm Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, anything else stand out besides that move to Ukraine from a strategic standpoint?
No, I mean, I think, France's northern position is looking a little dicier right now. I think that was a missed opportunity to do something more aggressive in Germany, obviously. I mean, we have the benefit of seeing the orders, but it looks like Sweden did go to Baltic, and so it looks like you're making an attempt to do something, and and that didn't happen. Take a shot at Kiel and Munich.
All right. Fall of 08, what happens?
Okay, I mean, we do see Edinburgh being pushed out here. England makes no attempt to keep it. Obviously, they could have taken the guess between tapping north with London or trying to support Edinburgh out. Didn't do that. They just go round to Wales, which seems a lot worse than going to the English Channel if you're trying to counter the French. Germany does actually hold their line against France, even while Turkey moves into their centers behind them. And Turkey seems to be wrapping up, taking the east, taking Vienna, taking Warsaw. I still don't agree that it's the right thing to do. It seems like he's going for a board top when France can very easily get a solo out of it. But France not taking advantage of that right now. Only pushing it to Edinburgh and nothing else.
Well, maybe.
We don't know the diplomatic situation. I know that there are many people who, were they playing Germany right now, would pretty much respond to the dotting in Warsaw with pretty strongly. So Bill is potentially playing with fire, but he may also know something about the diplomatic situation. I'm sure he knows a lot about the diplomatic situation that we don't, but he may be banking on the German player ultimately deciding not to throw everything his way. Bill may have some ideas of a glorious solo of his own here, and while that's certainly extremely unlikely, his army position is quite good, and the possibility of him lining up stuff on the eastern side of Germany and being able to plow through is not looking completely impossible right now.
Yeah,
how that gets you to 18, I have no idea, but nonetheless, he could still get quite a few dots.
Yeah, and Jonathan's sitting in third place right now, I believe, 5,000 points. I think I know I've not seen Jonathan's name as much. If I recall correctly, this may be his first game, so he may be content with third and not the kind of player who wants to throw that away. So
there are two Jonathans on this board as a heads up. So
Jonathan Dingess. Yes, thank you. All right, so moving on to our builds, 1908, we see a basically replacement French fleet with a southern build in Marseille for the one that was disbanded earlier, army in Paris. Then we've got two more Turkish army builds. Turkey wins games with armies, not fleets, and Bill's gone all in on that theory. We say good game to Jonathan Frank at this point. He disbands both of his armies in Austria, and I think that's it. Anything stand out to either of you?
I feel like France really needs another fleet in the north, and I'm somewhat shocked to see the army in Paris and the fleet Marseille. I do understand the build of fleet Marseille. You're still relying on that Naples fleet to hold the Ionian, and if Turkey did build another fleet and try to shift up a fourth fleet, you want to have it down there. But man, you need another fleet in the north. That English fleet getting behind your lines could really cause a lot of havoc, and I just don't know what you need that extra army for right now. There'll be time if you're making advancement. There'll be time to build another army.
Marcus, anything to add to that?
I mean, I absolutely agree. Even if you were going to send the fleet south, there's no reason not to put it in Brest. It gets to Tunis at the same time. And you kind of want to go north. It makes me think that France's approach here is saying, look at the Turk. The Turk is trying to win this thing. The Turk is the one rejecting the draws. Germany, go attack him. Because look, I'm putting the fleet in Marseille. I'm not going north. I'm not going for the solo. But Germany clearly still isn't responding to that. That would explain why the French backed out of their last turn as well. I really think France could just get a solo here by pushing without that kind of negotiation.
Well, let's see if they keep pushing for it, if they're pushing for the draw. Adam, why don't you talk tactics this round?
Sure. Well, France's focus is clearly more against, the English than it is against the Germans right now, and that's really apparent. They're flooding armies down south to lock up these lines, make sure that they have something in Piedmont to keep the Turks out of there, and so forth. And so it looks like whatever they were working on with the Germans was successful diplomatically, right? Nobody supports themselves to Ruhr. Everybody just goes there. And Germany actually does make the play to retake Warsaw. So that is looking very positive for the French. And I think what they're doing probably makes sense. Get the English out of your way, and then you can make your play in the north when you don't have the risk of something getting behind your lines. So, yeah, pretty cool. And I think that the advantage that France has right now, if they can manage to hold Venice, which I'm not sure, and Rome, which I'm not sure they can, but if they could, they don't need Berlin or Munich for 18. So I'm not convinced that they can hold Venice and Rome, though, in the long run.
So Morgante in chat did point out that he intended to build the fleet in Brest. So the fleet in Marseille was a misorder.
Okay.
And, I wonder if perhaps the sudden coordination that we're seeing between France and Germany was in some part inspired by the English taking the dot in Eddie. If there is a little bit of emotion that they were able to say, hey, we got a unified opponent here. So, Marcus, what did we miss?
Yeah, I think actually here we see exactly the danger with the strategy of trying to get the Germans to turn around, because now the German actually has turned around, but Turkey is doing the smart thing and saying, okay, maybe like if I back out of Warsaw and just give the German the center, they could prop up their own home centers against the French. And if that works, that might end up preventing the Germans, this French solo. Maybe not. Depends a lot on what exactly happens over there, but Turkey certainly has a chance here to show I'm not greedy. I'm just going to sit back and attack the French and show that I'm happy with second place. If Turkey's moves to Armenia and Romania could counter that. I really think Turkey needs to stop aggravating the German.
As a counterpoint, I kind of like Bill's decision here. To me, this is a great way to play Turkey for this turn. We're backing out of Warsaw. We're helping prop up the single person who can slow down my biggest opponent in France, while simultaneously moving more armies into position. It's, to me, a very strategic decision here. In the long game, I'm getting more units in position and slowing my rival down. So I don't hate this at all.
Yeah, I think it's maybe more of a contrast of I'm obviously a very online player, so I look towards the end game as usually being someone preventing someone else from soloing, right? And if France has Italy, they have Naples, they have Venice, they have Rome, I'm fairly sure they can hold them from this position. Aggravating the German is a really bad idea. You've already got second, it's carnage. Yes, I understand you're going for first, but there's no way you're getting first. France just has too much of an expansion route compared to you. And if you attack Germany, you're going to cause the solo and you're going to lose the game. And yeah, positioning on the Romania-Armenia front, maybe that doesn't aggravate the German immediately, but you're preparing to aggravate them. And France is going to win the game if you do that.
I think it's very simple, right? If Germany says, the moment you're in 7 Ukraine, this game is over. Yeah. The game is over. We're done. We have nothing to talk about at that point. So I think you can have that kind of shotgun negotiation with Turkey and just say, I'm going to make it very easy. You're in a position to attack me in those centers in Russia. Fine. You take those 2 centers and you can have your 16-18 two-way or whatever you want to call it, right?
All right, moving on. Fall of 1909. Adam, was this you? for tactics.
Okay, well, there it is. Bill does continue trying to make his advance. But what's interesting here is that Germany is actually making some aggressive anti-Turkish moves here with the attempt at Galicia and Tyrolia. So I think that's really interesting. And France is just sort of dancing armies around. I think France is not going to build here. So it's hard to see without that extra fleet in the north how they're really going to make much gains just yet, though.
Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, strategically, it's the moves to Ukraine, Sevastopol are so bad. It's just enabling this French solo. France isn't taking advantage of it yet, but they could at any time, and you're just giving them more potential to do that. Be happy with the second place. You're not getting better than the second place. If Turkey takes the board top here, I think it's a huge, huge failure to take advantage of this on the French part. And if France takes advantage of it, I think it's an easy solo.
I don't disagree with that analysis, but I'm secretly hoping that we see Bill pull out the board top and it'll be like, just show us that we're all wrong. So, because I mean, to be fair, he's got a read on the diplomatic situation we don't have. So who knows? All right, winter of 1909, we see Turkey disbanding in black. We see Germany building in Berlin. Those were the only exchange of centers. Go ahead and just press on here. Marcus, why don't you talk to us about the tactics in spring of 1910?
Okay, France still not taking advantage of this. Germany is moving everything away from France, so maybe this was what France was waiting for and has the potential to stab very effectively next turn. The convoy into Livonia, the move into Cilicia, all doing that. Turkey actually backed out of Ukraine again. This kind of adds to the fact that you shouldn't have moved into Ukraine in the first place. France's move into the North Sea positions even better for this stab, and I think it's got to be coming at this point.
Yeah, I wonder if it comes in 1910 or maybe it comes next year, because you take London, you support St. Petersburg so that Germany doesn't take it, and then you just plow into things next year, or maybe it happens now. I don't know.
Well, let's find out. What do we see, Marcus?
Why are you not taking? We do see the German armies moving back, so the French stab, if it had happened here, wouldn't have actually achieved anything. They do manage to get the extra center in London. They are playing this very slow but slowly making progress, and they do take Naples, so they do go +2 here. They're going to go up to 15. 3 centers needed to win, and I think they can get those centers if they just grind them out. But it's going to be harder than if they had just moved into Romania and not Romania. That would have helped.
I would have won. Yes.
Into and yeah, I feel like France should have taken more of an aggressive approach here. But what they're doing could work potentially in the long run, as long as England doesn't keep that English Channel fleet and just harass them now.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they keep the English Channel fleet?
Yeah.
What do you think about the choice to take out Naples and lose the Ionian Sea? I don't know. I'm trying to look tactically whether that's going to be problematic. I guess maybe not a huge deal.
I think it's a bad decision. I think you could take Naples at any time, but hey,
yeah.
I think they still because they still hold everything because they just moved Rome back out into the Tyrrhenian Sea here, and Naples can support Puglia, Ion, and Adriatic aren't going to do anything.
It does allow Turkey to move into the Adriatic, though, which now makes Venice more vulnerable. So I don't like it. I would have loved to save Naples until the end and pull that in to win the solo. I don't hate the set of orders. I just don't like it now.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I'm not sure you need 2 builds. You need 1, but you need the fleet Brest. But I don't know if you need a second fleet right now. Maybe 2 fleets.
All right. So with the builds, Morgante puts down 2 fleet. Fleet Brest, Fleet Marseille. England takes the less fun option and disbands in English Channel. And that's everything we've got. Continuing to press forward. Adam, why don't you lead us off in spring of 1911?
Sure. Okay, we're going to Albania for some reason. So in the south, Turkey is now going back up into Ukraine and Galicia for some reason. I can understand Galicia. I don't understand Ukraine. Maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know. But otherwise, not a lot of movement. Rome goes back out to the Tyrrhenian Sea. Nothing goes to Adriatic. I would have expected Albania to go to the Adriatic here. I guess Ionian doesn't need a double support right now. In the north, I think the only movement is France supports themselves to Roer and tries to go to Helgoland, which is stopped by Denmark. This is a tactical win for France. It's just a matter of grinding through. But ultimately, it's a tactical win unless they, something happens to their position in the south where they start losing something. Denmark, Sweden, and St. Petersburg are not protectable from the position that Germany has right now. And I suspect even Kiel is probably will be takeable as well.
Yep.
Marcus,
so. Yeah, absolutely. The thing to note here is if Turkey hadn't moved to Munich, France wouldn't have got into Ruhr. It's ultimately a small thing. But
Turkey moved to Munich. I didn't even see that. Why did he do that?
It's just... I just want to turn around, bang my head against the green screen for a while. Going, what are you doing, Turkey? Why are you going to Ukraine? Why are you aggravating the German? You're just going to lose all of the points that you have. There's no chance of you soloing here. With France in such a strong position around Italy, all you're doing is making sure Germany is going to turn around and let France win this game. And yes, France probably had this game won anyway, but in a big part, that was down to you constantly moving into Ukraine and Sebastopol and making this German defend themselves on your front instead of the front they needed to be.
Yeah, well, I'm curious. Maybe Bill's just playing. Hey, I need as many points as I can. I'm doing second place, and I feel like we can stop the solo. But that's playing with fire. Yeah. Is there any situation in which you, as France, accept a draw?
No.
Not absolutely.
Not absolutely. So, all right. Fall of 1911.
Okay, am I tactics here? I think I'm not.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Sure. We see actually Germany continues pushing back against the French, despite the fact that Turkey moves into Warsaw and into Moscow. So maybe I was wrong to criticize the Turk here. They seem to have somehow managed to convince the Germans to stick with them, despite the fact that they're taking all the German centers. I guess maybe it's just that Carnage says, the person with the most centers gets the most points. Germany was stabbed by France earlier on, maybe, kind of, and Germany is saying, okay, if you take my centers, then France won't get the board top, maybe. But I still think France has this thing won in the long run, and this is a painful thing to see. Maneuvering, not a lot happens. France actually loses Norway, which will cost them a unit, but they can take off Picardy, which isn't really doing anything anyway, and just keep trying to grind out this north. We'll see how that goes.
Adam?
I don't have a lot to add. It's fascinating to see what Bill is doing here, and to be a fly on the wall in some of these negotiations would have been very nice.
Yeah, maybe the argument here is, guys, we've got to force the draw. And maybe if France starts seeing Turkey getting all the dots instead of France, we're grinding it out. In the meantime, I'm giving those dots. We're going to be able to force the draw here. I don't know. I can't think of any other diplomatic magic, but maybe, I mean, Bill's a charming guy. Maybe there's something to it. All right. So with our builds, oh, that looks like it worked. That looks like where we end. We've got a draw in 1911. So I believe with Carnage scoring, I think they go back to I guess it's going to be this score. And then this is where we end it, is the 1911 results. Yeah. So Marcus, we'll start with you. Is this the right result for this game?
Oh, it's the right point for Turkey to draw and for Germany to draw and for England to draw. France, I really feel like had the opportunity to solo and they should just grind this out. Maybe it's just a case of we've been playing this for so long, I don't want to play it for much longer. But despite the fact there's 3 fleets in the north, you have 4 in the north. You can use that to push your advantage slowly but surely. There's no stalemate line here. I think I have to take back my criticism of Bill on the last phase, I guess, because this strategy of taking Warsaw and Moscow absolutely worked. It still got him second, but I guess I was misreading the intention of that. It wasn't to aggravate Germany, it was to force France to draw. But yeah, I don't think I draw as France in this scenario. I just grind this out and try and take the win.
Adam?
I'm just looking at the tactical position in the south, and if Turkey moves to the Adriatic, I think that they still have no play on Venice. I think that position really is locked in Italy right now, and I actually don't even think Lyon is needed, and and I think that unit can swing north, but maybe somebody who's better at tactics can comment on this. Skagerrak could be piffed now, but it really just doesn't matter. You rebuild it and you just slide fleets around. If you can pull Lyon back up, you can get it around now, get it up to Barents, get fleets up into Norwegian. It's just a grind, right? But Scandinavia is not going to hold in this position. I'm just trying to think if they got really creative and tried to put Turkey into Finland or something like that. I think even in that situation, it's just a grind out. So it's just a matter of, do you really, have the stamina to play long enough to make that happen?
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind there is a second round to this tournament. This is not the end of the game. And I imagine in 1911, they've been playing a while and they're probably coming close to the start of the next round. In order for Morgante to solo, I do still think the units are there, but it would be such a slow game. Online, I probably don't go for it, but in a tournament situation where I've got another round about to start, I'm not sure it's worth that grind.
The flip side is, at some point the other players may realize it's inevitable, and you can get them to concede. You can say, "Hey, I'll play all night. That's okay. I got this. You guys want to force me to play it out? That's fine." Or you can just acknowledge that it's there, and that's another tact.
Yeah, and to also I think the devil's advocate to my last point is that in Carnage, if you solo, nobody's catching you. The only way to catch is with another solo. So
it changes the dynamic in the second round big time if there's a solo in the first round, right? Because then people may play a little bit differently, knowing that that's their only option to win the tournament.